All right. Five passed, so everybody that is going to be here should be here. Welcome to the Twins umpiring course, edition 2. This will be functionally the same as the first one, so if you've heard that one already, sorry for wasting your time. At any point during this, if you have any questions, you can put them in the YouTube chat or the Twins Baseball WhatsApp group or in the Discord. I'll try and keep an eye on all three and answer your questions as we go. Let's see. First off, can people hear me? This is also where we test what the latency is on those questions. All right, cool. So first things first, umpiring is the most important job on the field. You cannot play baseball without an umpire. But despite it being the most important job on the field, an umpire who's done a good job may as well have not existed. They will make players think that the umpire wasn't necessary, that every call was obvious and they got everything right. You won't get everything right. It's basically impossible to get everything right. Major league umpires, literally the best in the world, since accurate computer pitch tracking has started, have never once had a perfect game. Not one game has gone by without an umpire missing a ball or a strike. You may have heard a few weeks ago there was an umpire who missed exactly one, but I think that game also had a few replays involved. So even then, not close to perfection. And those are rare. Like the average MLB umpire over the course of a season misses 5% of their ball and strike calls. That's 1 in 20. It's a lot. And those are professionals. They get paid the big bucks. Despite all of that, the expectation for umpires is start perfect and get better from there. Any mistakes you make can and will be held against you. So every little bit about your demeanor that you can fix, like you can't fix errors that you're going to make. You can reduce them, and you can present yourself in a way that's professional, so that doubts form less quickly. Because you can get a very close call wrong, but if you present yourself right and you're confident about it, there are very few arguments that will be had over that call. Another thing that umpiring has is there are no bathroom breaks. For a baseball game, those are 3 hours long. You do not have time to go to the bathroom. You get 2 minutes in between half innings to take a breather, and that's it. You have to be on the entire time, which means you have to know what parts of you can rest at any given moment. We'll cover more of that later. The umpire's job can be split into 3 bits. The first one is deciding the calls. So you decide whether a ball is fair or foul. You decide whether a pitch was a ball or a strike. You decide whether a runner is safe or out. Then you have to make the call. You have to convince everybody else that your decision is correct. And finally, you have to run the game. Despite the pitcher holding the ball almost the entire time, the game does not start until the umpire says play ball. Like nothing happens without the umpire say so. It's your job to run the game. So let's go over each of those jobs in order, one by one. First, deciding the call. There are 3 main decisions that an umpire makes that aren't, exceptional. The first one is fair or foul. You need to decide whether each batted ball is fair or foul every single time, which means you have to know the rules for that by heart, and you also have to set yourself up in a good position to do that. The best place to see whether a ball is fair or foul, is on the line. So for a plate umpire, you'll start the play back here, and you'll want to move either that way or that way in the extension of the foul line. I'm not drawing this very well, but in the extension of the foul line, so you can look directly down the foul line and see where the ball bounces. As the field umpire, you only have to make this call when you're in this position. We'll go over which position you'll be in when later on, but you'll be in this position, and then you'll just step over, be on top of the line, and do your very best not to get hit by the baseball. So for all of that, this is how you make those calls. You get on the line, you watch the ball all the way through, and then you make your call. With every decision you make, give yourself time. Watch it happen, think about what happened, then decide. Don't, for very close plays, just immediately make a snap decision and then go, oh, wait, no, it's something else, because that'll show in how you communicate that to other people. See, think, decide. Every time. If you have the same amount of time between the call or the play being made and the call happening, then they won't be able to tell whether it's a close play or not. The idea is every single time you think the exact same amount of time before you make the call, and even on close plays when you need the time to think, you'll have taken that time for all of the easy ones also. The next one that we see is safer out, which falls into a number of different categories. So the first one is catch, no catch. The best way to see whether a ball was caught or not is to look for a little puff of dirt right before it hits the glove. The other thing to look for is to get a good angle. You want to be able to see in between the ball, the glove, and the ground. Like if you can't see where the ball's coming down, then you won't have a chance of telling whether or not the ball was caught directly or not. If all of this fails you, you can look at the glove. So I'm going to draw a really shitty glove here. It's a cartoon glove, so they have 3 fingers. Usually, if the ball is caught about here, so towards the end of the glove, they catch it directly. But if it's caught more towards the palm, and this is like the last tool in your arsenal, by the way. If it's caught towards the palm, that usually means it hit the ground and bounced up. But all of that is like the last thing you look at if everything else fails you, including your partner at this point. There'll always be 2 of you. You can look at each other, make eye contact. Sometimes they'll have a better view than you do. Let's see. The next thing to cover is tag plays. For a tag play, the place you want to be is looking right in between the runner and the fielder. You want to be able to see the daylight in between the glove. That'll let you tell when exactly the tag is made. And you have to then be looking at 2 things at once, because you have to look at the tag, and you also have to look at the runner touching the base. And you have to tell what came first. And that's hard. That's going to take practice, and you're going to get a few of them wrong. If you have to choose between being able to look right in between the fielder and the runner and being closer to the play, choose the first. Angle over distance. If I'm way over here, there's a play happening at second base, and this is the line I want to be on, and I can choose between sprinting that way to get closer and sprinting this way to get the good angle. I go this way. I want to look right in between our fielder and our runner coming in. I want to be able to see the daylight in between the glove and the runner. That's the best way to make that call. Finally, force outs. Force outs are the one that you're going to have to call most often because there's almost always a play at first base. And for these, you're going to look at the base and listen for the glove. So most of the time, you'll have a play at first base, ball's coming in towards the first baseman. The base umpire will move out so that they are at a 90-degree angle from wherever the ball gets thrown. So if the ball gets hit to the shortstop over here, then we draw that line to first base, take a 90-degree angle. This is an awful 90-degree angle, but whatever. And come stand here. The reason we stand at a 90-degree angle is twofold. One, we can see the exact moment the ball hits the glove, even though that's not what we're looking at. And 2, it's the least likely place where we'll get hit by a ball. We're not looking at the ball once it leaves the shortstop's hand. Make sure that you don't look too early, mind you. Nothing's worse than having a fielder start to make a throw and think twice and then do something else with the ball, and you weren't looking at the ball, so you don't know where it went. Always follow the ball. Make sure it leaves the shortstop's hand, then turn to first base. Look at the base, listen for the ball in the glove, then once both of those things have happened, look up at the first baseman and make sure that he actually caught the ball and that it's not lying on the ground somewhere. The second reason we're looking at the base and not at the ball is we're checking for a pulled foot. We're looking for whether the first baseman has their foot on the bag. Now, that's a lot of things to pay attention to all at once, and you're going to miss some things sometimes. That's okay. It's going to happen. All you can do is get as close as you can without screwing it up. The last thing that umpires have to call or make a decision on is balls and strikes. Now, balls and strikes are the hardest thing to call in baseball. There is a ball flying very, very fast, which the pitcher is throwing to have an effect, and you have to decide whether it's inside or outside an invisible box. The positioning that you're going to want to take for that looks like this. You want to be right behind the catcher, and I mean right behind him. You put the front toe of the inside foot, so you're always on the inside. For this one, it's a right-handed hitter. So imagine a hitter standing here. The reason we don't stand on the outside, even though it's a better view, we don't stand there because that's where all the foul balls go. If a batter tips a ball and it just goes up and out. This is where you get drilled in the face all the time. We don't like getting drilled in the face. That shit hurts. We're going to stand over here where it's safe. So, front foot, inside foot, towards the front. Line up your toe with the catcher's heel, and then line up your other toe with your back heel of your inside foot. This is for two reasons. One, this makes sure you're close enough to the catcher to see everything that happens in front of them. If you're too far back, then you can't see the bottom of the zone, and you will get those calls wrong all the time. The other thing is this creates the exact right amount of distance that if the catcher pops up to go look after a pop fly, I don't get hit in the face. I like having my chin where it is. I also like not having my mask embedded in the catcher's shoulder blades. So this is where we stand. We leave exactly that much distance in between them. Your head, you position exactly, your chin goes on the catcher's head. Like, that's the height. Top of the catcher's mask is the bottom of your chin. And your hands, the inside hand goes behind your knee. This is very important. Getting hit in the hands hurts. It hurts less when your hand isn't resting on something. If your hand has somewhere to go when it gets hit by a ball, it's going to sting a little bit, but it's not going to break. If you place your hand on your knee, that's how you break fingers. Your other hand can go wherever it wants. It's behind the catcher, but it is important. Do not place it on something. Make sure that it is loose, and don't tense up either hand. If you tense up the hand, it's going to hurt more. Let it hang loose. If it gets hit, it won't be as much of a problem. When you're back here, so the pitcher, you want to set your feet well before the pitcher starts his motion. Stand upright when you do that. So set your feet, stand upright. Once the pitcher starts their motion, crouch. You don't want to be sitting here for longer than you have to. For one, you're going to lose your concentration. And for two, it's going to hurt after like the third inning. This is painful for your legs. If you do this wrong, then you can also get some back problems. So straight back, crouch through your legs, not with your back, which also makes it so that the chest protector actually saves your ass when you get hit by a ball. And don't crouch before you have to. You're going to be doing this 200 to 300 times a game. There are a lot of pitches in each game. Be sure that you're not doing it wrong and you're not putting more strain on yourself than you have to. If you're tired, you're not going to make good calls. So, set your feet, wait for the pitcher to get set, come down. Watch. Once you're down, do not move. You follow the ball with your eyes only. If the batter swings, don't blink. If the ball comes towards you, don't flinch. Your protective gear is there for a reason. You'll notice that this mask that umpires wear only protects you from the front. It does not protect you from the side. It does not protect you from the top. You need to stay looking at the ball because that's the safest place to be. Chest protector, don't turn it towards the side. You're not protected on the side. You're protected on the front, and you're protected on the top of your shoulders. Same thing for your shin guards. They protect you the front of your legs and the top of your feet. They don't protect the sides of your legs. They also don't protect your thighs, but your thighs can take it. I've had a lot worse than getting hit in the thigh. So, with all of that, look at the ball. Follow it all the way from the pitcher's hand to the catcher's mitt. Don't make your snap decision halfway through. Wait, have the ball hit the catcher's mitt, then make a decision. In that order. One thing at a time. Don't do more than you have to. I had one more thing for this. It'll come to me. Oh yeah. When you position yourself, the last thing to look for is to make sure you can see everything. You want to be able to see the batter. You want to be able to see the pitcher. You want to be able to see the catcher's mitt. And you want to be able to see the entirety of home plate. If you can't see the outside corner of home plate, you can't call the outside pitches. If you can't see the back part of home plate, you're standing too far away from the catcher. Get in there. The other important thing is follow the catcher. If the catcher gives you a wide angle, so sits on the outside of the plate, go stand in it. Take a nice look through the big hole in between the batter and the catcher. If the catcher moves over, you move over with him. They're the person protecting you from foul balls. Trust them to do that. Deciding balls and strikes is hard, and you have to do it a lot. But having done all that, there's not too much else you can do. You go in there, you stand in the same spot every single time, you follow the pitch all the way through, then you make your decision, all of that in that order, and your strike zone is at the very least going to be consistent. Between games, you can look at, okay, I called pitches that were too low today. So then, next game, I'm going to call pitches a little bit higher instead. You can tweak it in between games. Don't tweak it during a game. The worst thing as a player is to go out there knowing that a pitch is a strike and have it be a ball or the other way around. Keep it consistent. Once you've called a pitch a strike, it's a strike for the rest of the game. Don't change that for anybody. So, having covered all of that, there are a lot of decisions to be made, and most of them are helped by being in the right position to do those. If you can see the play, you can make a good call on the play. And anticipating which play is going to be made next lets you be in the correct spot. In between plays, think about what could happen next, and if that happens, where do I get the best view to make a call? There's a lot of thinking on the fly, and like playing any other position in baseball, it's just a thing you have to learn by experience. So, having covered decisions, now we're going to move on to making the call. How do we make people think that we are confident in our calls and also be clear about what we have called? So, when making a call, it's important that you're stationary. Stay put when you're making a call. Running around with your fist in the air to call an out looks dumb, and it also sounds dumb. Nobody believes you when you do that because that means you were late to your spot. Get to the spot, even if you saw the play later. Get to your spot, stop, then make a call. All of that is important. Make your call louder for close plays. The more obvious a play, the less attention you want to draw to yourself. You're trying to be invisible until you can't be anymore, and then you want to be forceful. So if the runner gets thrown out by a mile, nice and quiet. Still forceful, but quiet. He's out. If the runner is out and it's a close bang-bang play, yell, he's out. And you're also going to change your motion for all of that. So we're going to go over all of the calls you can make And also, for some of them, go over an exaggerated call and what that looks like. So for close plays, you do this. For less close plays, you do that. Let's go in the same order. So first off is fair foul. For a fair ball, the first thing to note is don't say anything. For the love of God, do not say anything. Everybody is expecting a foul call. So if they hear you say something that starts with an F and ends with ball, they're going to assume it's a foul ball, and they're going to get pissed at you afterwards if it's not. The call for a fair ball is just pointing. You point towards fair territory. Looks like that. It's dumb. You stand on the line, and you point towards fair territory. If it's close, you point towards fair territory a lot. Jerk your arm around. You got, you're not doing anything else with it. Just point, point, point. That's how you make the impression that it's a close fair ball, and you're sure of it. For a foul ball, you're going to give the time sign. So this is the sign you make when time is called. You put your hands close to your chest, and you throw them out wide above your head, and you yell, foul. If it's close, you do it twice, or even 3 times. Foul, foul. Motion is also done twice. So once you've done that, the ball is dead. After foul balls, the ball is dead. No other play can occur. Make sure you send the runners back. Make sure the batter gets back. And because the ball is dead, you have to put it in play again. You have to remember to do that every single time. Otherwise, people don't know when the play starts. So every time, you have to put the ball in play again. Next is safe and out. For safe, you make a T pose. But this isn't just throwing your arms out in a T pose. It starts with your hands close to your collarbone. And then you bring them out horizontally to make the safe sign. And you say, safe, or he's safe. If you want to make it, if it's close, then you can do 2 things. One is you make the safe sign twice, and you just say safe twice. You go, safe, safe. Loud, big, confident. If it's for a specific reason that they're safe, say it. Safe. He's off the bag. If the first baseman pulled his foot. And also make a little shoving motion with your hand saying he's off the bag. Or safe. Missed the tag. Something like that. Just something nice and short that says why they were safe. Only do that for close plays. If you do it for a play that everybody saw, you just look dumb. For an out, you knock on the door. So fist close to your ear, bring it up to a 90-degree angle. He's out. Or out. If it's close, instead of doing it twice, you punch. I'm not joking, you actually punch. Let your leg swing out here, nice and big. He's out. Loud. Call it like you mean it. It's going to take some getting used to that yelling as an umpire is a thing you have to do, but you have to do it as a player too. It's just a thing that happens on a diamond. Umpires should be loud when they have to be. So he's out. For catch, no catch, this changes a little bit in the sense that you say no catch or catch instead. So no catch, or that's a catch. Don't say no catch for every ball that hits the ground. Only do it for the ones that are close. I know I'm stating what might be obvious here, but just if it's super obvious, you don't have to make a call. It's just really important that you do make a call when it's needed. Finally, balls and strikes. For ball, once you've gotten into your crouch, the pitch comes in, you just make your decision, and you decide, that was outside. It's a ball. You stay down in your crouch for a little bit, and you say ball. And you only say this loud enough for the catcher and the batter to hear, because they're the only ones that can't look at you while this is happening. Everybody else sees that you didn't get up and make a nice big strike sign. For a strike, you get up, you come upright, and you make the out sign with your hand, and you yell, strike. You only do this for called strikes. If the batter swings, don't do it, please. It's just insulting. Everybody saw that they swung. The batter knows that they swung. It's important to do that. So strike sign looks like that. Come up, make the sign. Call strike nice and big. For a called strike 3, so batter doesn't swing, called strike 3, make it bigger. The classic one is revving the chainsaw. So you put your fists together, and then you pull your right fist back, and you throw your left fist forward in a punch, and you call strike 3. This should be loud. This is your loudest call in your arsenal. Calling strike 3 is like the most forceful you should be on the field. Strike 3. Really big. This is also where umpires get creative. There are a million compilations on YouTube of crazy strike 3 calls. Try not to get that crazy. But even just like MLB umpires still have a little bit of flair in their strike 3 calls. So this is your chance to get creative. But, keep it nice and keep it relatively simple. One big move, strike 3. So I said when the batter swings, you don't call anything. If it's a checked swing, you have to. Because then it's not sure whether or not they swung. So point at the batter and say, that's a swing, and then make the strike sign. For a foul tip, so for a ball that touches the bat but is caught sharply and directly by the catcher. Is touched by the bat, but goes sharply and directly and hits the catcher's mitt or hand and is caught. So functionally, sharply and directly caught. That's a live ball. That's not a foul ball. That is what's called a foul tip, and announcers use this wrong all the time. If it touches the bat and is caught, it's a foul tip, and it functions exactly like a normal strike. You pretend that it didn't hit the bat, except for the fact that everybody heard it, so you have to make the foul tip sign, which is brushing your right hand against the back of your left hand. You can do this once or twice, just to make sure that everybody knows it was a foul tip, and then because they swung, you don't have to say anything, so you just bring up the strike sign in your right hand. This is a live ball. Super important. This is a live ball. And for the love, don't call foul tip, because people are going to think it's a foul ball, and they're different, because a foul ball is dead. So for a foul tip, just brush your hand across the back, make a fist. That's it. So those are just about all the calls that you'll have to make as an umpire. Those are the ones with specific signs, at least. Everything else is a bunch of pointing and saying what happened. So for things like calling interference and obstruction, you just point and you go, that's interference, or that's obstruction, or that's a balk. There's a lot of that around. So calling those equally loudly and making clear what is going on to everybody is really important. Be loud, be assertive when you have to be, and be quiet when you don't. If people aren't looking at you already, don't make this about you. If everybody's looking at you to see what the call is going to be, make sure you live up to the moment. Are there any questions so far? Because I'm not seeing any anywhere in there. So questions about deciding calls and actually communicating them to other people. All right, not seeing anything, so we'll keep going. If something does pop up, then I'll get to that when I see it. Oh. Chris is asking what catcher's interference is. All right, so catcher's interference is when the batter swings at a ball and touches the catcher's mitt. It's important that the batter doesn't do this intentionally and doesn't just swing the bat at the catcher, because that falls under a different set of rules called the law, and that's assault. But batter swings at the ball and touches the catcher's mitt. It doesn't matter whether they touch the ball or not. That's catcher's interference. That's a dead ball. You call catcher's interference, dead ball, and the batter takes first base. Yeah. Agno also has a question. Bringing the ball back in play, that's just play. So the plate umpire waits until all the runners have gone back to touch whatever base they were on last. Waits until the pitcher has the ball and is on the rubber, and then points at the pitcher and calls play. And that point can be pretty forceful. So this is a nice big point right here, signaling play. You go play. And you have to do this at the start of the game. So you have to do this at the start of the game and also after every time the ball is called dead. So whether somebody asks for time or it's a foul ball, whatever. Ball has to be put back in play. So you wait till the pitcher's ready, the runners have touched their bases, and you call play. Before I move on to Chris's follow-up question, it is important. The batter doesn't have to be ready for you to call play. The pitcher isn't allowed to pitch until the batter is ready, but the ball can be put in play well before that if the pitcher is ready before the batter is. Pitcher has to know to not throw when the batter's not ready. For Chris, pretty much. It's the catcher's job to stay out of the batter's way. The reverse is true if the catcher's trying to throw out a runner trying to steal. But in this case, the batter has every right to try and hit the baseball, and the catcher's not allowed to get in the way of that. The only exception is if you think the batter's hitting the catcher's mitt intentionally. Let's see. Let's go to Bart. So Bart's asking whether a foul tip can be a third strike. Yes. It functions exactly the same way as a normal strike, except for the fact that the ball touched the bat. If it touches the bat and the catcher catches it and it's sharp and direct, and the only reason you knew that the ball got touched by the bat is you heard the sound, you treat it like it didn't touch the bat. For all intents and purposes, it is just a strike. For David, so a checked swing, strike or ball. The plate umpire calls the obvious ones. If it's to you, it's super clear, and you think that's a swing, then you call it. If you don't think it was a swing and the ball was outside the strike zone, you call ball. But the catcher and any member of the defensive team has the right to ask you to check with your partner, and you have to honor that appeal. As the base umpire, you respond to the plate umpire asking you whether or not they swung. So the catcher will usually point down to the base umpire. The plate umpire will go, "Did he swing?" and point at their partner, regardless of where they're standing. And the partner will make either the safe sign and say, "No, he didn't," for no swing, or will make the out sign and say, "Yes, he did," for a strike. For this, it's important to also be forceful. Everybody's looking at you to see whether or not it's a swing. Make your call big. Everybody clear on those? All right. I'm not entirely sure how long All right, cool. All the yeses are coming in, so that's about what that delay is. So let's move on to running the game. Running the game is the part of the job that people don't see when you're watching baseball. This is the part that they cut out of most of the broadcasts. The first part of running the game is before the game, make sure you have all your equipment. Like step one in umpiring a baseball game is 3 hours before the game starts, you go, do I have all the shit I need? And then making sure that an hour before the game, you actually are at the field just to make sure that you're, if traffic's bad, that you're still on time for the game, that you can talk with your partner, that you can make sure you know where everything is, what the field rules are, etc. Just like all the little things that have to happen before a game or anything that could go wrong, you have that covered. So make sure you have everything, then show up an hour before the game, talk to your partner. And then before the game even starts, you have to have a meeting with your fellow umpire and both coaches. This happens 5 minutes before the game starts at home plate. You go out there with your partner. The home plate umpire calls coaches, and the coaches come in and exchange lineups. Each coach should receive each other's lineup, and the plate umpire should also receive a copy of both lineups. The copy that the home plate umpire receives is the official copy of the lineup for the duration of the game. Don't lose it. So there are 4 copies of any given lineup. There's one for the umpire, one for the scorer, one for the home team, and one for the away team. If any of those conflict with each other, it's the home plate umpire's lineup that counts. Once you've received the lineup, you ask each coach in turn whether or not they have any changes. If they don't, that lineup is now official for the start of the game, and any changes to it are substitutions. We'll go over the rules for substitutions later, but just for that to be clear. Then, with both coaches, you go over the field rules. What are the rules that are special to this field? Making sure everybody understands the field rules as the same. If the home coach usually has an idea of what those field rules are, you can let them explain it, but the away coach can still disagree with those field rules. If there is a disagreement, the plate umpire gets the final say. Then, at game time, plate umpire has to be there with a game ball and be ready to say, play ball. One thing that helps me stay focused or get ready as a plate umpire is to have the same routine in between each half inning. The pitcher's warming up. They're going to throw between 5 and 8 pitches. You have that opportunity to just look at them and get a feel. Just go stand behind there for 2 or 3 pitches, and then stand off to the side. And when the catcher throws down to second base, clean off home plate. Make it nice and clean to start the half inning. New half inning, new you. Don't worry about any mistakes you have made. Start again. Then by the time the ball's gotten thrown around, you'll be done with that. Batter will be set, and you won't have to stand around just waiting for everybody to get done with whatever they're doing. Make sure everybody's ready, and say, play. It's important that it's not play ball. I did say play ball earlier, I realized, but it is play. Make it the same each and every time. The next part of running the game is calling time when you need to. So after a foul ball, the ball's dead. You call foul, and that immediately stops play. If anybody asks for time, you make sure that there's no play happening at the moment. Like, don't interrupt a hidden ball trick because somebody's asking for time. Don't interrupt the pitcher while he's throwing when they ask for time. Make sure that time can be granted, and then you can grant time. Make sure big time. So the same sign as we have for foul, throwing your arms out, and you yell time. If you hear your partner call time, also call time. Make it loud. Some people can't hear the umpire because they're on the other side of the field. Make sure it's clear for everybody that play has stopped. So, time. Then, after that, once everybody's ready to play again, the plate umpire has the responsibility to put the ball in play again. We went over it. Play. Another part of running the game is substitutions. This is one quirk of the MLB rules, which we still have to deal with, and that is basically the MLB rules say the coach shall announce substitutions to the plate umpire. But it doesn't have a penalty for it, which means that if you break that rule, there is no penalty for it. It's just a rule that exists, which can be broken. Which is dumb, but the rule book is full of shit like that. So for this one, the coach will usually ask for time. We'll say, I have some changes. Come over to you. You just take them over to the scorer so that the scorer can get in on these at the same time. And make sure all of the changes are legal. Again, we'll go over the substitution rules later. Otherwise, if a change is not announced and you notice it, call attention to it to the scorer. Like, it's not illegal. It's just a change that has been made and was not announced. There are rules about when exactly each substitution is legal. Like for the batter, it's once they step into the batter's box, etc. like just saying when exactly a substitution is deemed legal, even if it's not announced. If you see it, point it out to the scorer. Just go, hey, scorer, and then point at the new player. Like, this guy's new. Just be aware. Most of the time in our league, you won't have to deal with that, but just in case. Another part of running the game is you'll have to deal with coaches and players. There are other people on the diamond, and they tend to not agree with whatever you're doing. So it's your job to be firm and not so you don't want to be so unapproachable that all of the comments come behind your back, but you don't want to be approachable, if that makes any sense. You don't want to make it seem like you're ready to have a conversation about any and all calls. The call's been made. It's not your problem anymore. Players and coaches can ask for explanations. They can ask, was that pitch outside? Or how far outside was that? After you call a ball, for example. But they cannot ask, are you sure? Or argue a call, for that matter. By rule, the only thing that players and coaches are allowed to do is they're allowed to ask for clarification, and they're allowed to protest a rule being applied. They're not allowed to protest your call. They're allowed to protest that you're not applying the rules correctly. Those are both things that are allowed. In theory, all arguments about any calls is an immediate ejection. This is important, which means any leeway you give anybody is entirely your generosity that you're giving them. Like if somebody makes a comment about a ball or a strike, I didn't think so, and you don't eject them immediately, technically, that's a courtesy. You also don't eject them because what your end goal is to have a good game of baseball where everybody stays on the field. But sometimes that's not possible. If somebody's arguing your calls, it's better to eject them than to keep dealing with their bullshit, both for your mental health and for the game. Make sure that when you think, man, this guy should probably be ejected, that you fucking do it. If you don't, you're going to regret it later. Every single time. If somebody is giving you enough shit that you think, maybe I should eject them, do it. Don't wait around and wait for it to become a bigger problem than an ejection will handle. If it gets to that point, you just eject somebody, set the example, you usually won't have to do it again. If you wait long enough, you're still going to have to eject them, and you're probably going to have to eject 2 of their teammates as well. Keep it simple. Eject people when you have to. If you do decide that they deserve a warning, which is a perfectly valid thing to do, don't... John asks whether they can protest that you didn't apply the strike rule correctly. It depends on what you mean by that. So judging whether or not a ball is in the strike zone or not is a judgment call. Those can't be argued against. But if, for example, they ask, did that ball bounce? And you say, yes, I think it bounced, but it went through the strike zone, that's a strike. They can argue, you're not applying the strike rule correctly because you thought it bounced, but if a ball bounces, it's automatically a ball. Like, those things can be argued. But you can't argue that the umpire's eyes are bad. All right. Back to... Oh, yeah. So, warnings. If you do warn somebody, follow through. If you say, Coach, that's enough, and they say more shit, eject them. Otherwise, they know that they can do whatever the fuck they want and get away with it. So, if you warn somebody, that's enough about that, I don't want to hear anymore, and you hear some more, gone. Make the ejection. Throw them out of the game. It's going to save you a lot of headache in the long run. Coaches and players like to yell at umpires because they think like they're not trying. You're trying. You know you're trying. You're not trying to get things wrong. They are being assholes. Eject them for it. Let them know that what they are doing is fundamentally not okay for the sport of baseball. So with all that, you're not trying to be hostile to players. At the end of the day, you are trying to run a baseball game as smoothly as possible. If a player or a coach makes that impossible, remove them from the game. It's that simple. The next thing that umpires have to deal with is weather. We live in Belgium. Belgium likes to rain a lot. Drizzles we can deal with, but as an umpire, as a home plate umpire, you have the jurisdiction to say, we can't play in this. We're done. You call time, you wait for it to clear up, etc. The rule here is not, is it fun to play? The rule is it safe to play? If you start getting mud on the field, somebody's going to hurt themselves playing ball. If it gets too wet and the pitcher can't throw strikes properly, then it's not safe to play baseball. If the ball's slipping out of people's hands, it's not safe to play baseball. Wait, make sure, just call time, make sure to wait for it. If it's weather that you can play through, but you need to make adjustments for that to happen, like if it's hot, call time after a few batters. Make sure the defense can go get some water. Just take rest breaks for that. Make it safe to play. If it's a little bit of rain, let pitchers have a towel in their back pocket to dry off the baseball. Like, these are things that you can do to make the game playable. Chris asks, do you just yell warning? No, you warn them in normal language. Like, usually when this happens, it's somebody actively talking to you. You go, I don't want to see that anymore. Or, that's enough of that. Or, I'm not arguing balls and strikes with you. Just tell them in normal language that they're doing something wrong. Yelling warning is not something that's done in baseball. Finally, post-game. Once the game ends, you call ball game. Loud enough for everybody to hear. And then, if Dad could stop sneezing for like 1 second. Holy Christ. Sorry. So, post-game, call ball game. Loud enough for everybody to hear it. And then, make sure that there are no remarks. So, go over to the scorer. See whether there's a protest or somebody got injured or whatever. If there are no remarks, then you can just put your signature in the bottom right corner of the scorecard, and your duties are done. You are no longer an umpire as far as the rules are concerned. I'm sure he appreciates your support for his loud-ass sneezing. Okay. Are there any more questions about how running a game works? Because I'm sure I missed a few things. All right. If I see him pop up. Oh, yeah. Yeah, John, we haven't covered that yet. That's the next thing. That's the next thing up. Anything else? Because otherwise we're going to move on to that. All right. So the next thing we're going to talk about is how do two umpires work together? You're playing, like, you are a team here. There are two of you. So one, where does each of you position yourselves so that the all your bases are covered? And what responsibilities fall to each umpire? So first off, there's the plate umpire. They just stand back here. That's their spot for the start of every play during the entirety of the game. The base umpire has 3 different positions they can be in. With nobody on base, they stand behind first base, and they stand in foul territory. And the reason you stand in foul territory is because if you get hit by a ball in foul territory, it's a foul ball. Whereas if you're standing in fair territory or like straddling the line, then you have to decide what party you got hit. We don't like that, so we're just going to stand slightly in foul territory. Be sure that you're standing behind the first baseman. So, behind them. You want to be able to see them out of the corner of their eye, because if there's a pop-up over here somewhere, then you want to be able to see them coming and be able to get out of their way. First basemen tend to be big dudes. You don't want to get run over by one. If there's anybody on base, we're going to be in one of two positions. Right here or right here. And I'm not drawing these entirely right. So the idea is you're going to stand on one side of the pitcher's mound. You're going to draw a line between home plate and the edge of the mound. And then you're going to pick the spot halfway in between second base and the pitcher's plate. So about there or about there. When you're picking your position here, be sure that you can see second base properly, that you can see first base properly, and that you're not standing in either the second baseman or the shortstop's way. If you need to move over a step or two to make sure you're not, do it. Now, we stand in the left position, closer to third base, in one situation and one situation only, and that is when there is a risk of a steal of third base. So if there's a runner at second and there's nobody at third base, there could be a steal of third, so then we stand over here. In all other situations with runners on base, we're on the right side, closer to first base, because that's where we expect the play to be. Other than that, functionally, these two positions are the same. Like this area is called the working area. That's just about where we're going to start in most of the plays. And I'm going to treat them the same for the purposes of this because it doesn't really matter for for what responsibilities you have. Let's see. So first off, fair foul. So for fair foul, it's divided this way. If the base umpire is over here, so off the line on first base, up to the base, not including the base, so this way, is for the plate umpire. All of the third base side is for the plate umpire, but on the base, on the first base side, and the baseline is for this guy. Base umpire has a better view of this, and that's why we're going to make that call. Bart asked whether you can go behind the second baseman, so I'm guessing you mean out here. If so, no, we don't do that. That's a softball thing. You will not be able to make calls properly on the infield if you're outside of the infield. Like that's just not, we don't have enough umpires for that. You'll see in 4-man systems that the second base umpire will regularly stand all the way out here. But that's because there are 3 other umpires to make all the calls in the field. We don't have that luxury. Let's see. All right, so I was covering fair and foul balls. In the other base umpire on the line, they get their base and past it, and the plate umpire gets everything else. If the base umpire is in the middle of the field, so there are any runners, the plate umpire gets all of it. That is no longer the base umpire's job. They don't have to care anymore. Let's see. The steal to second. Steal to second, the base umpire will be in the middle here. So they'll be in this position or in that position. Usually in this position. This is how you make that call. You're already in about the right spot to see in between the tag. The plate umpire will never be able to see that play. They are 127 feet away. Which is 43 meters. Even with the perfect angle, they can't make that call. That's too far. It's always the base umpire here. When you see the steal happening, you have time to take about 1 step in one direction. If you already have the right angle, then you take your step towards it. Otherwise, you find the right angle. Make sure you don't step too far this way and get hit in the back of the head. Follow the ball through. Watch the tag happen. Make your call. in general, safe and out, first and second base, so here and here, almost always, for our purposes, always base umpire. Every single time. The plate is always the plate umpire. Third base is usually the base umpire, but if a play has just happened at first base, and if the home plate umpire has time to see it coming and get over there, then the plate umpire can come over here and help out. But primarily, base umpire. Unless you start umpiring on a weekly basis, the exact situations in which third base needs to be covered by the plate umpire aren't going to be a thing that come up often enough to worry about. It does get more complicated than this, but we're going to keep it nice and simple. In general, first and second base, always base umpire. Home plate, always plate umpire. If there's a play at third base, make eye contact. If you see the play, call for it. Tap your chest, my call, make it. That holds for every call that there's any doubt on. If both of you can see it and you think you have an equal shot of it, make eye contact first. Don't both just make a call. If one guy calls safe and the other guy calls out, then you're fucked. One person makes a call at a time. You can fix it later. For fly balls to the infield, it's whoever has the best view. This is one of those ones where you look at each other and you make sure that only one person makes the call. For fly balls to the outfield, there's an actual division to it. If the base umpire is on the line, then you split the field right down the middle. Anything close to the base umpire is their call. Anything far away is the plate umpire's call. If the base umpire is in the middle, then we split it so that right down the right fielder and left fielder. So the left fielder is going to be standing right here, and the right fielder is right here. If they move towards the line, this is the plate umpire's job. If they move towards the middle, then it's the base umpire's job. It's not too much harder than that. With the base umpire in the middle of the field, their job is really easy. They follow the baseball. And I say really easy. There's a lot going on, and it's hard to know what to look at. So at the level that we're expecting, then stick around, watch the ball, see where the play is going to go from there. Try to anticipate it a little bit, but don't oversell it that you can't see anything else. Let's see. Chris asks, if a hitter hits a double or a triple, should you stay behind first? So I'm guessing over here. If nobody's on base, hitter hits a double or a triple, or run into the field towards that ball as the play is developing. So I'm about to get to that. So if you're in the middle of the field, follow the baseball. That's it. The plate umpire can hop out if there's no play imminently happening at the plate to get a better view on other things, but usually they're going to stick around home plate. But other than that, this situation is relatively simple. There's a lot of things going on, so we have to be able to prep for all of them at once, which means we're not going to have a perfect prep for any of them. If we're over here, that means there's one runner. And that means we can get very specific about what we're going to do. So there's one runner. If the ball is to the outfield, so ball's to the outfield, if it's to the left side, not the base umpire's problem at all. They do the same thing every time. They come into the infield right here. They watch the runner touch first base, and then they just follow him around the bases. They're just going to run inside the baseline, follow them around until a play is made at second or third. This little thing is called the button hook. It's a thing that you'll see in every umpire book ever. Just come to the inside of the field once you realize that it's not your problem. Follow the runner. There's only one guy. That's where the play is going to be made. You don't even have to worry about where the baseball is. Just follow the runner. If the ball is on your side of the field, then you have to make two decisions at the same time. One is this ball... basically, it's just one decision. Is this ball, one, a possible catch, and two, a difficult catch? Like, if it's not a difficult catch, then the plate umpire can see it just fine. And you can do your usual bit and just follow the runner around. If the ball's caught, it'll be obvious. If it's not caught, it's obvious. Same thing for base hits. If it's a very clear base hit, you just go in and you do your button hook. If it's a difficult catch out in right field, then you yell to your fellow umpire, "I'm going out." Usually you throw your hand in the air also, and you just sprint out there to get a better view on that. You're not going to be all the way out there by the time the catch is made or not made, but you can take several steps to make sure you have a better view. Talk about this one with your plate umpire, because they have to know whether or not that's a thing you do. Because if it is, then it's their job to follow the base runner. They have to make a call at a base, which means they have to get off their ass and sprint. In this case, we don't have to button hook because we're already facing the right way. Do check whether the runner touches each base, and cut corners. Runners are faster than you are. I know we all play the sport, but plate umpires especially, are wearing a whole bunch of equipment. You're not going to be running too fast. You've been out there in the sun for a while. You're tired. Cut corners. Sit. Just do like a little loop around the pitcher's mound until you know what base you're going to, and then sprint out towards that base. Like that's your motion. If you're worrying about being in somebody's way, most of the time, so in this situation, nobody's here. The pitcher is going to fuck off to wherever to cover a base, but nobody's in there. You really, a lot of the time, don't have to worry about being in people's way. If you're in the middle of the field, you have to be sure to be out of fielders' ways, but you're usually only going to have to worry about one guy and the ball. You know which guy is coming for the ball most of the time. You know where the ball is, and you know where it's getting thrown to. And you don't even have to be out of the way for where it's being thrown to. You can just duck. It'll get thrown over your head. If they hit you and you couldn't get out of the way, honestly, that's on them. You do your best, and that's all you can do. Other than that, it's a live ball. Does that answer your question, Chris? If the if the deciding whether or not you should go out is difficult and the home plate umpire doesn't want to deal with ever running around the bases, you can just make it so that the base umpire never does that. If they're over here, ball gets hit, they do their loop every single time, and you don't have to worry about it. It won't affect the quality of your umpiring too much. It's just that little extra edge that you can gain on some very rare plays. So that's about how the division of labor works. For all other calls, it's very much see it, call it. You see a balk, you call it. You see the ball go out of play, you call it. You see interference, you call it. You see obstruction, you call it, etc. Now, there's a lot going on in a baseball game, which means that you need to be able to communicate with your partner. The signals for those are pretty basic. The first thing is, in between each batter, signal the number of outs. Just as new batter's coming up to the plate, make eye contact, signal the number of outs. If it's 0, make a fist next to your side. If it's 1, put one finger down. If it's 2, 2 fingers down. Let's see. Okay, so John's asking whether the umpire is in play, unlike soccer. And the answer is yes, mostly. For throws and for pitches and stuff like that, yes. But for a batted ball, there is one exception. And that is if an umpire gets hit with a ball that a fielder has not had an opportunity to field yet. Hits the umpire, then it's a dead ball, and that's umpire interference, which means the batter gets a base and everybody else moves up if forced. So for most cases, the umpire's just in play. If you're standing in the middle of the infield and a line drive hits you, that's a dead ball. That's about it. If an umpire standing in foul territory determines a foul ball, we'll get into fair foul in a bit, like the deets, but yeah. So, signaling number of outs, just do it by your side. Make sure you do it every single batter. It just keeps your mind on the game. It helps a lot. If you don't know what the count is, ask for it. Make eye contact and rub your 2 fists over your chest. Like, just do this back and forth. Your partner will give you the count silently. Don't make it very clear that you're giving your partner the count. Just like put out your fingers. Your left hand is for balls and your right hand is for strikes. So here, this is 2 balls, 1 strike. The easy way to remember that is your out sign and your strike sign. That's all with your right fist. So that's for your strikes. Left hand is the balls. You can also remember it another way, and that is you read left. Sorry, not right to left. You read left to right. And when you say the count, you say balls first. So left hand first for balls, right hand second for strikes. If the infield fly rule is in effect and you're signaling the number of outs, do it on your cap. So 0 outs, just tap your cap, and with 1 out, put 1 finger up to your cap. We'll go over infield fly rule in a second. I have an entire list of rules that we need to go over because they don't happen often, but they're important. On top of that, before the game, agree with your partner for a sign that says I have more information. It's not I have to talk to you. If you think you saw the call, don't bother talking to me. But if you're not entirely sure, call me over and we'll have a chat because I think I saw something that you didn't. This is for stuff like pulling your foot, and it should be something that's super unobtrusive. So for example, if you stand with your hat in your hand instead of on your head, that means you have information. So like I saw the first baseman pull his foot, or I saw the ball touch the ground. Little things like that could easily be missed. And if your fellow umpire looks over at you and sees your hat in your hand and doesn't say anything, that doesn't mean they missed the sign. That means that they know what the call was. They think they don't need help, and it's their call, so you let them have it. Don't insert yourself into your partner's call. If you do decide to talk it out, you're not 100% sure, your partner's not 100% sure, and you talk it out and you decide to change the call, the umpire who made the call in the first place changes it. Don't overrule your partner. In theory, you're equals on the field. So that's about it for the 2-man system. Like if you want to get into it, there's a lot more to it than that. Like you can get really into the nuance. But that's enough to get you through games unscathed. Not every game, but most of them. But nothing's going to get you through every game. There's a saying that if you umpire alone, you're going to miss 3/4 of what happens. If there's 2 of you, you're going to miss half of what happens combined. Like you just don't have enough eyes to see what all 9 defensive players are doing at any one time, plus where the ball is, plus where all the runners are. Like you just can't. There's no way. Things just get missed, whatever you do. This is just going to give you a decent shot. Are there any questions about the 2-man system before we dive into a whole bunch of rules? And while we're at it, are there any specific rules that people need covered? Because they might not be on my list. And then we'll just go over them first and see what we have time for. All right. I'm not seeing anything yet. So I'll just get started on my rules list. If anybody has either questions or a specific rule they want covered, toss it in any of the chats. So the first one is specific to our league. It's game length. We play 9-inning games, and we have a 3-hour time limit. And what that means is we finish whatever inning we're in, no matter what, and we don't start a new one 10 minutes before the 3 hours are up. Which is just about it. We also have mercy rules. If one team is up by 20 runs after 5 or 10 after 7, then the game's over. Just keep track of the score towards the later innings to make sure that you can call that properly, and keep track of the time limit as you feel that the game's getting on. The scorer will keep track of both of those for you. You just have to go over and ask. Next is interference and obstruction. And how to know which is obstruction is when a defensive player fucks up, and interference is when an offensive player fucks up, except for catcher's interference, which is weird. That's it. So for interference, any offensive player interferes with a fielder fielding a ball. So for any batted ball, the first fielder to try and field it, they have right of way. The batter and the runners have to get out of the way of that. So for example, touching a ball that's in fair territory, intentionally or not. Batted ball, mind you, not a thrown ball. If it's thrown, then that's on them. Fielders need to throw better. So touching a batted ball in fair territory, getting in a fielder's way, actively trying to hinder a fielder. All of those things are interference. And interference is an immediate dead ball every single time. You don't keep playing after interference happens. You call time, point at the play that just happened. That's interference. And whoever committed interference is out. If that person is already out, so like on a double play, for example, or an attempted double play, then whoever the play was being made on is called out. For example, if there's a runner on first and that runner causes interference, if they were out before they committed interference, then the batter is also out. Otherwise, we just call the runner out for interference. What's important is that nobody can advance on interference. Like, you have to give the batter first base because there's nowhere else for them to go. But runners can't advance bases on interference. You don't get to benefit from cheating. Obstruction happens whenever the defense fucks up. Whenever a fielder is not fielding a batted ball directly and is not about to receive a throw from another fielder, they can't be in the runner's way. So that's obstruction. And there are two types of obstruction, and the only difference between them is whether or not the obstruction is on a runner on which a play is being made. So basically, like, if a runner is sliding into a base and a fielder just like stops them and holds them back from reaching the base, that's obstruction on a runner on which a play is being made. And all other situations just about are not on a runner on which a play is being made. So that would be something like a first baseman standing on first base as the batter's trying to round to go to second. For the first type, so runner on which a play is being made, that's a dead ball. You call time, that's obstruction, and the runner is safe at whatever base they were trying to reach. In the other case, it's not a dead ball. It's a live ball. You call that's obstruction, and then you let it sit. And after the play, you call time, and you award bases that you think the runner could have made had they not been obstructed. So for example, the classic one here is there's nobody on base, and the batter hits a double into left center field. And the first baseman just stands on first base, and the batter has to slow down as they round first base to make sure they don't run into them. That's obstruction. They don't have to make contact, they're just in the way. So you call that's obstruction as the batter rounds first base. Now the batter gets thrown out at second on a close-ish play. It doesn't even have to be that close. You're going to give the batter the benefit of the doubt here. They get thrown out on a close-ish play. You call time. You point at first base. You go, that was obstruction. The batter gets second base, and you award them that base. That's about half the reason that we watch the batter round first base, because that's the most important part that's the part where obstruction happens a lot. Both interference and obstruction, for a large part, are umpire judgment. It's all about what you think is and isn't obstruction or interference. If you think they're fucking with people, you can. If you're generous, give them a warning. I wouldn't. Just call it. Obstruction, interference. Make sure they know you're not fucking around. The next big one is balks. Balks happen a lot. Pitchers aren't very good at following rules. And hold on. So John's asking, what if a fielder is waiting for a ball in the runner's path on a bang-bang play? So the rule for that is fielders are allowed to stand in a runner's path when they are in possession of the ball or in imminent possession of the ball, which means that they're about to receive the ball. They can't wait there. They have to move into the line as they receive it. Which means you can't wait for the ball to be thrown there. You have to stand next to where you want the ball to be thrown, ask for the ball there, and if the ball travels there on the throw, then you can move into the line. Like that's, and it's umpire judgment what is imminent possession. Yeah. Further questions on that? All right. Yes, kind of. So for a batted ball, the first fielder that tries to field it has right of way. So they have to, so they have the full right to stand wherever the hell they want to field a ball. Hold on. Let's go one question at a time. So it's not the same as a batted ball because the fielder has the right of way if they're the first fielder to field the batted ball, and the runner has the right of way if they're not. So a fielder fucking up fielding a ground ball, deflects it and it hits the runner, not the runner's fault. They don't have to worry about that. A fielder standing in the runner's line when the ball is not going to be there yet anytime soon, usually you're going to give the fielder the benefit of the doubt there. Like even if it's coming their way, they have the right to field it how they want. For Chris's question, shortstops often stand quite close to the runner's path. Should the base umpire tell them? No. If they get in the runner's way, like they have a chance to still move out of the way later, you call obstruction or interference as needed when it happens. Like you don't warn people, hey, watch it, you're going to get close to breaking one of those rules. No, you go, when they break the rule, you go, hey, you broke a rule. Let's see. More questions about that? Okay, we'll get to them if they come up. We were on balks. Yeah, pitchers are bad at following rules, especially at our level. And the actual balk rule is several pages long, and it's boring. And it's also just like a pain to remember. In general, the easiest way to remember is to remember what a pitcher is allowed to do, and work from there. So there are two different ways a pitcher can pitch. They can pitch from the windup and from set. We'll go over each of them in turn. So from the windup, the only requirement is the pitcher is touching the rubber, and at some point they have both of their hands together. That's it. That's all that's required to start from the windup. From there, they are allowed to take 2 steps with their left foot if they're a right-handed pitcher. 1 setting step and 1 pitching step. Pitching the setting step with their left foot is the start of the pitching motion. Once they do that, then they have to pitch. So if they stop doing that, that's a balk. Let's see. we're usually going to give quite a bit of leeway on the right foot, which is technically not allowed to leave the ground, but there's always that step in there. We don't care. Like, that's not going to be a problem. So a pitcher starting from windup has their hands together. One of their feet is touching the rubber, at least usually their right foot. And then from there, they have 3 things they can do. So they're not constrained with their movements. It's just if they release their hands come apart, they have to either pitch or step off. And the thing that determines which of those they do is between which foot steps off of the rubber. So if their left foot goes first, then they're pitching. If their right foot goes, then they're stepping off. They can also, from that position, step and throw towards a base. If they do that with their left foot, they have to go. So they step with their left foot towards a base, and they have to throw towards that base. You won't see it often, but it happens. The other way a pitcher can pitch is from set. From set position, the only rule, like officially calling it set position, is you have to have a foot on the rubber and a foot in front of the rubber. It doesn't specify beyond that. But it does specify they have to take their signs from touching the rubber. You can't take your signs from someplace else. So there will always be placing the foot on the rubber, taking signs, and then coming set. And coming set means bringing your hands together and coming to a complete stop. No. For Agno's question, left foot was an issue last game because the last pitcher... So that was before he had both hands together. No, so he was pitching from set position. And we're going to get to what that means right now. So from taking the signs, you have to go in one motion to coming set. And you come to a complete stop in set. The stop doesn't have to be long, but it does have to be there. So come set, stop, and once you're stopped, you can only do... so you can still move your head, but other than that, you can do 3 things. You can step off, so your back foot comes off the rubber and you separate your hands. From there, we don't care what you do. You can step towards a base with your left foot and throw. You have to throw to all bases except for second base, which gets an exception for some reason. Or you can start your pitch. The problem we had yesterday was that the pitcher came set slowly and in increments, and it wasn't always clear when he was set and when he was still coming towards set. So in coming set, you can take as many steps as you want. So coming from taking your signs to coming set and ready to pitch, you can take as many steps as you want. You just have to keep moving while you do it. You can't stop at any point. Like that's the rule here. Basically, anything that deviates from those rules is a balk. And it's hard to tell what is and what isn't a balk. It takes practice. And almost always the first balk you see in a game, you go, fuck, that was a balk. And it's like too late to call it because it's going to be awkward now. In general, I would push past that. Because otherwise, you aren't consistent with what is and what isn't a balk. It's like your strike zone. If you call something a strike, it stays a strike for the rest of the game. In this case, if you call something not a balk, then you kind of have to allow it for the rest of the game. Like you say, all right, that was okay. That was an acceptable motion. If anything is borderline to you, you go like, oh, well, maybe that was a balk. You have about 3 options. Like the first one is if it's a thing they do every single time and they do it consistently, you're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, sure, whatever. If you think that is really close and I don't want to have to make that call when it comes, talk to the pitcher in between innings. Just go like, hey, if you could give me just like a little more time set, that'd make me a lot more comfortable. And they're going to get the message that you're sending. Like the message that you're sending is, you're coming awfully close to me having to call a balk, and I don't want to have to do that. And most pitchers will happily agree because they know that you're not calling them on a balk. Like this is a friendly warning. It's not really a warning because there are no warnings for balks. You just have to call them. It's just, this is close. And the third thing is if it's close like that, you call it a balk. You just say, that's a balk. I'm not going to allow that. Like, those are your three options. Now, balks are a big rule. They're so big and complicated that there is a meme about what a balk is. And it's mostly a mess. Like, the balk meme goes something along the lines. Do balks also apply to softball? Kind of, but not really. We'll get there. Here, so I'm just going to show you guys one of the this is one of the balk rules. Where it goes balk 1A. So a balk is when you 1B. Okay, well listen, a balk is when you balk the. Let me start over. Explaining a balk, basically the idea is explaining a balk is hard. Like, this is what the rule sounds like to people that don't know what they're going for. There's a lot of extra shit involved. Calling balks is hard. There's a lot of nuance to it. Basically, it's a lot easier to go, this is what is allowed, and if it's not, it's a balk. Hold on. How do you tell what a pitcher usually does when it's the first time you see him? So, you tell what a pitcher usually does by multiple uses. This is why, so if it's a borderline case, you might let it go the first time. And if he does it a second time the same, then you're going to let it stand for the rest of the game. And if he does it only sometimes, then the next time you see that bullshit, then you call it out. Like, that's where you're at. It's a thing that some people do. As a rule, if I think it's borderline, I'm just going to call it, because that cuts it out for the rest of the game and I don't have to deal with it anymore. Do know that you can't call a balk with no runners on base. So with runners on base, the penalty for a balk is it's a delayed dead ball. We'll get to what that is in a second. And all the runners move up one base. If there are no runners on base, it's called an illegal pitch. An illegal pitch is just a ball. These are two different things in baseball. So it's a balk if there's runners on base, and it's an illegal pitch if there are no runners on base. Now, what a delayed dead ball means. When you see a balk, you point at it and you call, that's a balk. And then you wait. Because if there's a thing that happens and it's in the offense's favor more than the penalty for a balk was, then you let that stand and you don't care about the balk. If you call an immediate dead ball, then that can't happen. So, for example, the pitcher balks, pitches anyways, and the batter hits a home run. That is better for the offense than just not having a pitch happen and each runner moves up a base. So we're going to let that stand. If you call, that's a balk, time, then the batter's home run doesn't count because you called time and you made a mistake. So you point, you go, that's a balk. You wait to see whether there's more play happening. Then you go, time, that was a balk, and then you place runners. And if there wasn't, if something happened that was better for the home team than the balk, then you don't say anything anymore. And if people go, hey, didn't you call a balk? You go, yes, I did. Do you want me to call it back? And they go, no, thank you. And you go, that's what I thought. In a situation where it might not be better for the home team, but it could be, the manager gets a choice. So for example, if you have a runner at third base, let's say runners at, not a runner at third base. Let's say we have a runner at second base. And the batter hits a fly ball to right field, which gets caught, but somehow the runner from second base scores on that play. So the batter's out, which is worse for the home team, but the runner moves up 2 bases and scores a run, which is better. If there was a balk on that pitch, then the manager gets a choice of which play he wants to keep. Does he keep the batter is out, the runner scores, or does he keep balk happened, we take the play back, runner goes to third base? In those cases, they get a choice. If it's strictly worse, then they don't get a choice, and if it's strictly better, then they also don't get a choice. Any more questions on that? And I'm like, I'm sure there are more questions on balks, but we could also talk about those for another hour. So like big things. All right, if they come up, let me know. And I'm sure somebody's typing at this very moment, but I'm going to try and move on anyways. So we're going to move on to an easier rule, and that is hit by pitch. Because you can have the batter get hit by a ball and have them not get first base. And that happens in two situations. If the batter doesn't try and get out of the way of the pitch, or if they get hit in the strike zone. If they get hit while swinging, for that matter. So if they get hit while swinging or in the strike zone, it's still a dead ball. If the batter gets touched by a pitched ball, it's a dead ball no matter what. But what happens after that changes. So if they were swinging or it's in the strike zone, it's a strike. We've had people strike out on those, like swinging at a pitch and they get hit in the knuckles. It hurts. It sucks, but it's a strike. If you don't try and get out of the way and you're not in the strike zone, it's just a ball. You don't get first base for not getting out of the way. Any movement is good, basically. If you're not moving towards the ball, just like anything is good. All you need is turning your shoulder, flinching, something. It doesn't have to be a lot, but they do have to try. Be sure to call them out on that. If you see batters that just stand there and take it and make no movement whatsoever, and I mean no movement whatsoever, call them on that. Say, no, get back here. That's a ball. It's important. The next rule about batters is the batter's box. There are two parts to this one. The first is, unless there's like a foul ball or a pitch inside or something, the batter always has to keep 1 foot in the batter's box. It's important for keeping the game moving. If they're not doing that, then you have to tell them to do that. Like, hey, I need you to keep 1 foot in the batter's box. And the penalty for not complying within a reasonable amount of time is you just start calling strikes. You don't have to have the pitcher pitch. You go, I need you in the batter's box. And if they don't, you wait a little bit. And if they're not in there, you just call strike. And you wait a little bit more. And if they're still not doing it, you call strike 2. People can strike out on this. It does happen. Very, very rarely, but it does happen. This is just part of running the game, is keeping the game moving. You keep a batter's foot in the batter's box. The other part of that rule is when a batter hits the ball, neither of their feet can be entirely outside the batter's box. This won't happen often. And when it does, it'll usually be very obvious because suddenly when the ball is getting hit, the batter's foot is in your field of view. So it's not a thing that you have to like keep a close eye out for, but it is a thing you have to just watch for. Like you just know that when it happens, this is what happens. If they do that, it's called illegal batting. You call them out on it. That's illegal batting. You call time. The batter is out. Let's see. The strike zone, just to be sure that we're all on the same page here. The strike zone is the zone over the plate, between the bottom of the batter's knees, so the hollow below the kneecap, and halfway between the top of the pants and the top of the shoulders. That puts the top of the strike zone about at the bottom of the letters, usually, which is a good place to just like have a visual reference. Now, if any part of the ball touches any part of the strike zone, that ball is a strike. Sorry, that pitch is a strike. Slow pitch does have batter's boxes. And it's actually more important to pay attention to the batter's boxes in slow pitch than it is in baseball, because batters will like to shuffle sometimes to get a running start at the pitch. So this strike zone, the rulebook strike zone, means that a ball here, just clipping the top of the strike zone, one where the top of the ball goes up to the armpits, that's a strike. People almost never call that. The rulebook strike zone is way different from the actual strike zone that people call. For the top part of the zone, you usually call balls that are strictly below the top of the strike zone, like just so you don't get people yelling at you. For inside and outside and the low part of the zone, then absolutely call everything that touches it. You're never going to get this perfect. Your strike zone is usually going to be a little bit wonky. Like the average strike zone is like this diamond shape. So it starts up top in the middle here. It cuts off a corner. It ends up a little bit inside there, a little bit low here, and a little bit outside, and you tend to not call the corners. And oftentimes it'll be more accurate on the inside than it will be on the outside. Just because, and it'll be more accurate at the top than it is at the bottom, just because it's closer to where your face is. It's just that simple. For fair ball and foul ball, let's just draw a few. For balls inside, so balls in the infield, the rule is where the ball is touched, stops, or leaves the infield. Whatever of those happens first. So if it doesn't leave the infield, it's where it comes to a stop, or is touched for the first time, or leaves the infield. So for example, if a ball bounces a whole bunch, rolls, and ends up here, that's a foul ball. But by the same token, a ball that starts rolling out here, comes back in, and ends up here, that's a fair ball. A ball that's, the foul lines are fair territory. Same thing with home plate. Hitting home plate does not mean it's a foul ball. It doesn't mean anything, really. If a ball stops on home plate, that's a fair ball. The bases also determine a fair or foul ball. If a ball hits a base, it's a fair ball. So that counts for second base also. So if a ball is a line drive, hits second base, bounces off into foul territory, fair ball. But yeah, it's where it passes first or third base while it's leaving the infield. So that's a fair ball. That's a foul ball. Bounces right over the bag. That's a fair ball. It's not where it hits the ground there. It's where it passes the base. If a ball doesn't touch the ground in the infield, then it's where it lands first. So a ball that flies through the air and lands here is a foul ball. One that lands here is a fair ball. If it's touched in the air, then it's where it was touched. And we only care about the position of the ball, not about the position of the fielder. This isn't basketball. It's not football. Like, we don't care where the fielder was. We only care where the ball was. If a ball hits a batter's foot inside the batter's box, that's a foul ball. It happens often enough to be aware of the rule. Next up, force outs. I'm sure everybody knows what a force out is. But an important thing to note is that despite the fact that being forced to tag up can be, like, runners who are out by that can be made out just by touching the base that they have to go to, like a force out, it's not technically a force out. And the only reason that matters is for scoring. So runs don't score if they're on a play where the third out is made on a force out, or it's made before the batter runner reaches first base. So before the batter reaches first base in any way, shape, or form. Which means that for outs that don't have that happen, it's all about time. It's about the time play. So it's, does the runner touch home plate before the out is made? Which means that runners that have to tag up and have to go back, that out is a time play. It's not a force out. Just a thing to be aware of. If you have a time play on your hands, make sure that you tell the scorer what your decision was on the time play. Nobody else really cares, except for the fact that a run may or may not score. But say that run scores or that run does not score. Like, be sure to add that to your call. These are, like, not super in order, but substitutions. For baseball, once a player is removed from the game, they cannot enter the game again. Be sure that you're aware of that. If a manager comes out twice in one inning to the same pitcher, that pitcher is removed from the game automatically. So another thing to just keep track of. The designated hitter is its own can of worms, but we usually don't see them in our league, so I don't care. Infield fly rule. If there are runners on first and second, we don't care about third base here. And if so like there could be a runner, we don't care. And there are less than 2 outs. So less than 2 outs. And there is a fly ball on the infield in fair territory, which can be caught by an infielder, which is any fielder that starts on the infield, with reasonable effort. What reasonable effort is entirely up to you. Basically, if a fielder can get under a ball and not have to run too hard to catch it, that's reasonable effort. Then the batter is automatically out. This ball is live, by the way. The only thing that changes from the normal situation is the batter is out, which means the runners can advance if they want to. If the ball's caught, they still have to tag up. But if it's not, they don't. Just keep an eye out. Make sure there are no plays being made. When this happens, call infield fly. Call it real loud. Point at the sky. Go infield fly if fair. Make it loud. Everybody has to know that the infield fly was called. If it turns out to be a foul ball, then it's not an infield fly. The batter's not out. It's just a foul ball. You called if fair. That's important. It's also important to call it loud enough because otherwise runners think they're forced. And the idea is to protect the runners here. So make sure to do it early enough and loud enough that they can hear you. This rule also applies in slow pitch. When the infield fly rule could happen, so with less than 2 outs and there are runners on first and second, that's when you do the different infield fly signs for number of outs in between batters. So remember, you do them low by your side if there's no infield fly rule, and you do them on your cap if there is. Yeah. Next is out of play. It's usually pretty basic. It's always 2 bases, almost always 2 bases from the time of the pitch. It's from the time of the throw. If an outfielder throws it out of play, or if an infielder throws it out of play as the second action. So like the first action would be the infielder picks it up and throws it to first base. If that ball gets caught and then it gets thrown to third base and that goes out of play, that's the second action. So then it's from the time of the throw. Most of the time, these will be roughly the same for your call. Just a neat thing to be aware of. On top of that, if a pitch goes out of play, that's only 1 base. Yeah, there's slightly more to that, but we're not going to bother right now because they don't happen often enough to care. And I think that's all the rules I have for baseball that are going to be super important. Unless anybody has any questions, then we'll go over just the differences between umpiring baseball and softball. Like most of that, yeah. Like most of that applies to both, but we're just going to go over the few differences. If there aren't any questions, then we'll move on to that. The first thing for softball is positioning. The only real difference is instead of standing in the infield, because this infield is tiny, we're going to stand out here. Softball diamond is tiny, so then we can do that. That's why you sometimes see umpires out there. That's softball positioning. The second thing is it's slow pitch softball. In between each play, the ball is dead. There's no steals. Runners can only leave once the batter touches the ball hits the ground on a pitch, or it passes the batter. Otherwise, they are leaving early, and they are called out. Like that's just called leaving early, I think, and it's an out. It's a dead ball and an out. Slow pitch will also have a safety base, so they'll have a double wide first base. And the only time we use this extra part of the base is when a batter is running through it. So for all other plays, this base may as well not exist. If a batter's coming back to the base, or a runner is rounding it to go to second, this base doesn't count. It's only for running through the base. Slow pitch also doesn't have balks. Illegal pitches are a thing, but they're always just a ball, even with runners on base. Pitching has to be done underhand. It cannot be done at excessive speed. What that is up to you as the umpire. And the ball has to travel in an arc where the minimum height of the ball at its peak is at least 1.80 m and at most 3.60 m. So you want it to go over your head when you're standing up, and you want it to not go sky high. If that doesn't happen, call illegal pitch early enough. Softball is also played. Questions. Let's see. So David, if the ball is dead after every play, when exactly does the play end? If there are no specific actions that end play. So the rule is when the ball is on the infield and no imminent play is happening, which functionally means no runners are trying to advance. Runners are on their base. They're not in danger of being thrown out. The ball's on the infield. Just call time. And Aino says the runner starts running once the ball is at the batter, not when it leaves the pitcher. Yeah. So it's when it leaves the pitcher for fast pitch, but we won't be umpiring those. For slow pitch, it's when it crosses the plate, is hit, or touches the ground. That's when they're allowed to start running. Yeah. Softball is played explicitly co-ed, 5 men and 5 women, in alternating order in the batting lineup. And the ball that's pitched changes based on the gender of the batter. So it's a 12-inch ball for men and an 11-inch ball for women. Changing those balls is a thing you can have somebody on the sidelines do, or it's something you can do yourself, up to you. But you're just going to have to change the ball every batter. Let's see. The other thing is in between innings, there are no warm-up pitches. New pitchers get 3 warm-up pitches, and other than that, no warm-up pitches. Game just starts. Keep everything nice and short. The game's length is 7 innings or 80 minutes, with the same time limit rules as ours. So 10 minutes before that 80-minute time limit, we don't start a new inning, and we always finish the inning we're in. Mercy rules change every year, and I can never remember them properly, but I want to say it's 20 runs after 3 innings, 15 after 4, and 10 after 5. That's the thing to check before the game. The other major difference is as an umpire at the plate, you're going to be standing farther back, and you can stand upright. You also don't have to wear protective gear for this. The ball is not going to come in hard enough, and you're far enough back to just dodge it. Balls and strikes should still be called the same. Foul balls in slow pitch softball can be third strikes. Bunts are illegal. And I'm missing another major rule, which I had just a second ago. Yeah, no, it's not coming to me, but... yes. There are also 10 people on the field for each team. So you'll have 4 outfielders on each side, which is just a thing to be aware of. Yes. And the one I was thinking of earlier is there are special rules for walks. Because it's co-ed and rampant sexism is a thing, if a man gets walked and is followed by a woman in the batting order, that walk is worth 2 bases. Other runners still only advance if forced, but the idea is to prevent intentionally walking half the lineup. So that's just a thing to know. That's about it. Other than that, oh yeah, the last thing for balls and strikes. Oh yeah, sorry. The thing I was thinking about earlier was the strike zone. Sorry if this is confusing. I'm making sure I have everything. The strike zone, yeah. The strike zone is slightly bigger. So it still goes from the bottom of the knees, but it goes to the top of the shoulders. And on top of that, if the ball touches home plate, it's a ball automatically. And yeah, tagging up on fly balls works exactly the same. Like most of the differences are in like starting the plays. So pitching, the strike zone, where the runners start exactly, but everything like the actual play itself is mostly the same. Like if you're umpiring these at a professional level, then it's easier to think of them as two different sports. At the level we play them, they're the same. All right, so I think I have all the differences between baseball and softball there, or all the ones that are, extremely relevant for umpiring. Which means that, believe it or not, unless there are more questions, we're done. So if there are any more questions for anything, you can put them in the chat now, or you can ask me about them later. Entirely up to you. You can always refer back to this or to the playbook, which will be in your hands at practice tomorrow, unless something goes horribly wrong at the print shop, along with a PDF version. So bring room in your bag for that. Which reminds me, I got to put that in the group. But yeah. So if there are any more questions, I'll hang around for a few more minutes to answer those. And otherwise, I will see you all at practice. So Aino's question, yes. There are more extra runs for more women on the team. It's 3 runs per extra woman on the team, as long as the opposing team has less than 5. So you don't get bonus points for playing 6 women, 4 men when the other team plays 5 and 5. Only for playing 5 and 5 when the other team plays 6 men and 4 women. But they don't count towards mercy rules. So for the umpire, you just don't care. That's a thing that the scorer gets to care about. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any more questions. So I will see you all at practice. If there do happen to be more questions, you can send them to me via text or email, and I'll get back to you. Yeah, see you all at practice.